And is the doors? They should be coming up any minute.
Sure. In our office on it, so yes.
Good job. All right. Like to call the roll so we can establish we have a quorum present. So let me go down the list. Martin Keely. Here. Samantha Torres is absent. Liz Gray is absent. Guadalupe and Lana is en route. Absent at the moment, but will be here. Summer Sneaker.
Here.
She can hear now.
Don Gosney.
Here.
And James Sanders is here. So we have 4 of the 7. So we have a quorum and we can conduct business, which was our problem some years ago. But now no longer is. So let me go through the introduction here. Where was it? I follow this. Look at this here. Okay. Committee meetings, agendas are available for review at the Facilities Operations Center at 1400 Marina Way in Richmond and online at WCCUSD.net. Documents that are public records will be available for inspection in the district office located at 1400 Marina Way South during regular business hours. In addition, such writings and documents may be posted on this district's website when the agenda is posted. You can attend in person. The meetings are also broadcast via Zoom using the following link, which is wccsd.zoom.us.I. Looks like possibly a J. 961146232120 or by telephone at 669-444-9171. The public will have different opportunities to address the committee. The public can address the committee during public comment and before an action or discussion item. The public can provide public comment in person through the Zoom app and by telephone. Public comment will last approximately 10 minutes. The time allotted for each speaker is 2 minutes. If you are attending the meeting in person, you will need to submit a request to address the board. To indicate your desire to speak during public comment on a non-agenda item or before the item becomes on an agenda item. If participating via Zoom, you will need to raise your hand by clicking on the appropriate icon in the Zoom app or by pressing *9 if accessing the meeting by phone. No yielding of time or substitution of speaker is permitted. The public will have an opportunity to make public comments on agenda items after the presentation of each discussion and action item. The time allotted for public comment for each action or discussion item and items not discussed on the agenda will be no more than 10 minutes and 2 minutes per speaker. Due to the Brown Act, committee members cannot discuss items not on the agenda and do not usually respond to items presented in public comment. Special accommodations upon written request to the district, disability-related modifications or accommodations, including auxiliary aids or services, will be provided. Please contact the facilities office at 510-307-4545 at least 48 hours in advance of the meetings. So, I'd like to, first, in the absence of any objections, if there are no objections, the agenda as presented is approved. Don?
I object to the fact that we were not presented with minutes to review before, just a few minutes before the meeting started, and we're missing too many minutes, so we can't really approve what we haven't seen.
Don, they're before you. And I asked the copies be made so that you could review them, and it'll take a few minutes and let you review them.
I'm sorry, I cannot review something, I mean, I cannot support adopting something I haven't been given a chance to thoroughly review.
Okay.
Just to remind you, we're at adoption of the agenda, those comments are more for when we get to the approval of the minutes, then you would bring those up.
I'm sorry,
in that subject, that's where they belong.
I disagree with that. This is, part of the agenda is approval of minutes, and I'm saying that we cannot approve minutes that we haven't had a chance to see. So we should not be, that should not be part of the agenda,
Mr. Gosney.
okay?
It's okay.
But also, I also have another issue on, we could possibly have significantly more speakers than we can accommodate at 2 minutes apiece in the 10 minutes. So I would make a motion that we allow each speaker that signs up to speak for the maximum of 2 minutes.
When we get to that point, make a ruling.
So what are we actually approving if we're not talking about anything that's on the agenda?
It's out of order at the moment.
So his points are very well made. And for as far as the proper procedure to do that, when we get to approval of the meeting minutes, he would make the motion then to do it, or you can ask for it to be stricken right now. If you wanted to add, to change something in public comment, then we would have that motion when we get to public comment. Right now, we're just adopting that this is the agenda. We can change it on every single item when we get there.
Okay, because he just read off what was on public comment as being part of the agenda with the time limitations.
And that can be changed as soon as we get to the public comment portion. You're welcome to make the motion.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
Or if we could try, if there are no objections again.
I voiced my objection.
He raised his objection, so I think I have to have a motion to approve the agenda. And I think everyone's reading the minutes. I know. If there are no objections to the agenda.
I still have an
Yeah,
objection.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the only way we're gonna get around the objection is if there's a motion to approve the agenda and then we can vote on it.
If there's a problem with minutes, we would do that when we got to the minutes portion. of the
Yeah.
agenda. Yeah,
Right.
that's correct.
Okay, so once again, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second? Art? No? Guadalupe? No? Okay. Yeah, what changes would you like made to the agenda, Mr. Gosney?
Remove item A3. Because, I'm sorry, you go ahead and finish my sentence for me.
I'm not trying to finish your sentence, I was touching my computer.
Okay, but it's removal of 8.3, since we have not received minutes with sufficient time to review. I'm only seeing one set of minutes out of the past 5 meetings. And so getting the minutes, just literally a minute before the meeting started, it's not sufficient enough time. But also,
Is that your motion?
you asked for my objections.
Yeah,
I was listing my objections.
okay.
So the adoption of the agenda has failed. So we've now moved on to item A3,
A3,
which, and Don's motion is
to remove.
to remove item A3. So
I
we're
would
not
make-
at the discussion part of that yet. We need a second,
Yeah,
and then we would return directly to Don for his explanation.
okay. Is there a second to removing item A3 from the agenda?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Gosney?
We haven't received in this packet, we have not received minutes for us to review before we got here. With sufficient time to review anything that's in there. Given one set of minutes, literally just 1 to 2 minutes before the meeting is not sufficient enough time to review them. And so it'd be improper to try to approve minutes that we haven't had a chance to really see or review. We need sufficient time on that. And I do not embrace the idea of approving minutes and coming back later to make changes, which has been suggested by our parliamentarian in the past.
I'd like to stick to the discussion in the room, not remarks made outside of the room.
I'm sorry, she went on record saying we can approve minutes and come back.
You said in the past, it's her, any comments she might have made in another meeting at another time, I really haven't, they're not in front of us here. Right?
No, I mean, if a parliamentarian tells us this is how we conduct our meetings, then does it change from meeting to meeting?
You're missing my point, Don.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So, it's been moved and seconded that item A3 be removed from the agenda. If there are no objections, the motion passes. With respect to item A4, anticipated future meetings. We've been meeting approximately 2-week intervals. And we're coming into the summer season when people go away on vacation. So, and I believe that we have as E2, the calendar for future meeting dates. So I'd like to, deal with item A4 under E2 when we get there, if there are no objections. Hearing none, item A4 will be discussed as part of item E2.
Yeah, isn't that the meeting that you're talking about postponing, moving, would be today's meeting, it has today's date on it, 6/11/24. On item A4, on that one?
This is the agenda.
I was looking at the minutes, okay, never mind. I will draw that.
Okay. So again, if there are no objections, item A4 is moved under item E2, under action items. Okay, so now we are at C1, which is public comment. I have 4 requests to discuss the Cordova site, items at the Cordova site.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, what was that time we had to?
Yeah,
Would you like me to tell?
yes, please. So, I'd like to give people a chance to address them. I have them in the order received. So our first speaker is Don, and I'm going to try my best to pronounce this. Kunyamicha? Help me out here.
For the school district, I give you synonymous.
I know.
It's a challenging one, I understand.
Kuya, is the
That's good,
first 2
Yeah.
syllables okay?
yeah,
Okay, so I'm only tripping over J-I-A-N.
yeah.
Jen. Giant?
It's one syllable, Jen,
Jen.
yeah,
So,
Oh,
yeah. You were very close.
okay, Don, Kuyan, Jen,
And where
followed
would you-
by Liz Rotker,
no.
followed by Liv Imseth, followed by Trish Clifford.
and where would you like us to stand to address the committee?
So this here in the center is actually a microphone and a camera because we're also hosting this meeting via Zoom. And so if I could make a recommendation, it would either be to come stand next to the chairman or here, just so that the microphone and the camera could pick you up for everyone participating in the meeting tonight.
Okay, can you stand right here, for instance? Since it's got a clear view?
It's 6 feet, so if that is 6 feet, I know it's a little bit closer on this side just because of the wires. So I would say 6 feet within this device would be best.
Before we get there, Mr. Gosney, you wanted to amend the public comment amount, the time limit?
Well, if you've only got 4 people signed up, then it's not necessary. I didn't know if all these people, if you could get 6 people, that would have been at least 12 minutes. Or no, 8 people, that would have been 16 minutes, but if we've only got 4 people signed up, then there's no reason to extend it.
Okay. All right. Don,
If I speak,
either here or there.
Let's just stand next to him at the top.
this is the difficult part. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dawn Kiyunjin, and I'm the coordinator of the UC Master Gardener Program of Contra Costa County. My purpose tonight is to give you a very short overview of what the program is about. So, the program is one of a network of 53 Master Gardener programs across the state of California, established by the university in 1980. Its mission is simple: to extend UC's research-based knowledge and information on home horticulture, pest management, and sustainable landscape practices to the residents of California. Guided by our core values, acquired knowledge, and program initiatives, UC Master Gardeners are volunteers who aim to inspire, to educate, and to build local communities of knowledgeable gardeners. All of our information, outreach, and resources are offered at no charge to the public. They are part of the give back of the university to the community. Last year alone, 274 UC Master Gardener volunteers in Contra Costa County donated over 28,800 hours of service to the community and had over 8,700 face-to-face contacts. A few of our projects are the help desk answering gardening questions, a speakers bureau where we have reached thousands through our webinars in conjunction with the Contra Costa Library, and mentoring in community and school gardens, including Mira Vista and Fairmont. We have a number of demonstration gardens, including our newest, the Water Conservation Garden at the Portola site, where we demonstrate best practices in water conservation in the garden and other sustainable landscape practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barker.
Could you restate your name and spell it for us?
Liz Rutger, Rottger.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Liz Rutger. I'm a resident of the city of Richmond. Both my sons attended Portola Middle School when it was still part of what was called then the Richmond Unified School District. They received an excellent education in the district schools, and they went on to graduate from UC Santa Cruz and Cal. I've always loved gardening, planting seeds, watching them sprout, and grow, and nurturing plants throughout their lifetime. I also love to learn about gardening, about new techniques and solutions to gardening problems. But that is very hard to do in your own backyard. That's why I became a UC Master Gardener here in West County 17 years ago. It gave me a wonderful opportunity to not only learn more about gardening from UC experts, but then to spread and share that knowledge with others in my own community. The Water Conservation Garden on the site of former educational institution, Portola Middle School, has the potential to continue the noble tradition of education as an extension of the UC Master Gardeners. We want to develop the garden of the future, the Water Conservation Demonstration Garden and Education Center, providing West County residents with new ways of gardening to meet the challenges of the 21st century. On this vacant weed-choked site, we are already restoring its degraded soils and creating a natural habitat of native trees and plants, where we demonstrate how beautiful these plants can be in our arid California landscape. In the future, we can host small, free small group classes, not only for our neighbors, but potentially also for the students of the West Contra Costa Unified School District. We would teach them how to regenerate the soil, how to capture and store rainwater runoff from their homes, how to install water-wise irrigations, and how to plant family vegetable gardens so that they too can enjoy the fruits of their labor and also enjoy more food security. I hope you will help us to make this dream a reality for future generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. She went a few seconds over 2 minutes. I was glad to offer the same courtesy to the next speaker and the next speaker. So, Liv Inset. Sorry.
Leave inset.
Can you,
Good evening.
can you spell your name, please?
LIV. Leave, and then inset, IMSET.
Thank you.
I too live in Richmond. I graduated from the Master Gardener program in 2019. In addition to a love of gardening and learning about the mysteries of the natural world, I also have an affinity for water issues. I'm an environmental engineer and have worked mainly in the hydropower industry, but also on water supply projects in third world countries where clean water is scarce. Ironically, perhaps what attracted me to the Portola site and its potential as a demonstration garden is the lack of water. We all know it is a precious resource, and especially in California. We need to learn how to live with less waste. With a little ingenuity, we've already demonstrated out at the Portola site that it is possible to have a home garden to grow food without using a lot of water. The modified raised beds that we have installed at the garden use 50% less water than a traditional raised bed. Furthermore, the reservoirs that are buried in the beds are filled with water from the winter rains. Very little supplemental water is necessary to grow your favorite vegetables. As a bonus, 2 of the 3 reservoirs we made used recycled plastic bottles, which we collected down the street at the El Cerrito Recycling Center. We would love to teach others in the community some of these methods we have developed. Those we have been in contact with to date are very interested in learning about more. We would love to continue to use the site and expand its value as an educational asset for the community we are trained and enthusiastic about serving. We have summarized these key points in a handout and would be happy to provide more information or a tour to the committee members if you're interested. Otherwise, we thank you for your time and energy figuring out these sites.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
leave
you
it
very
there.
much.
You're gonna give those to them?
They're there.
Trish Clifford.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trish Clifford, Clifford. I am a Richmond resident as well, have been a master gardener since 2013. One of my daughters went to Portola, as I know both of Jim's daughters did as well, and that's how I know Jim through our kids. So it's just been wonderful to be part of the Master Gardeners, and Lee and Liz have talked very well about the work we're doing up there. I'm really concerned with climate change. And we're already seeing the change to our weather. So doing the research that we're doing to learn how to use less water and how adapt our plants to the heat is really important. Another project I'm involved with is the Richmond Grows Seed Lending Library, which is also an official project of the Contra Costa Master Gardeners. This started in 2010 in the Richmond Public Library. As far as we know, it's the first seed lending library in the public library, and we offer free seeds to the community and also classes on how to save seeds. And we're also involved in what's called adaptive gardening, so helping the plants adapt to climate change. So these are all great things that Master Gardeners is doing, and I'm really proud and happy to be part of this group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any more comments?
Now, can I just ask about the handouts? Should we distribute them, or do they become part of the record, or?
They're not part of the minutes, but we can, I have no objection to them. being given
I'd
to
be
the
glad
members
to
of the
distribute
committee.
it to everybody.
Thank you, Nick.
Didn't you say you had 5 people signed up?
4. I've gone through all of them.
Okay, I just misheard, I guess.
And at this time, I don't see any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay.
You can have your book back. I was giving one on Saturday.
Back to our agenda. So, on the action items, the list of priority uses for surplus sites. I'm listed as the presenter, discussion and action to adopt a list of priority uses for each site. And it says committee members may discuss the list of priority uses for purposes of, discussion only. I made up this table and it has two parts to it, and everyone should have, a copy of this. You may recall at our last meeting, I worked on a whiteboard, which made me feel good as a teacher. But the writing was not my best. So I reduced it, took a picture of it, and reduced it to the upper half of this table. And reading across from left to right are the 4 sites that we're concerned with in alphabetical order. And then in the next row down is the option of surplus, sell, or retain. And so those entries represent the board, the committee's findings thus far, which is with respect to Adams Middle School declared surplus, and look at selling the site. With respect to Herman Knowles, declared surplus but retain it. With respect to Portland Middle School, declared surplus and to sell the site. And with respect to Seaview Elementary, declared surplus and to sell the site. Moving down are the entries that I made on the whiteboard with a priority of possible future uses. And what I'd like to do with each of us is to go through these one site at a time and establish a priority of the uses with respect to that particular site. And if there are other uses to be added to the site, this is the time to add them into a free-flowing discussion. And we'd like people to be recognized before talking. Okay. So with respect to Adams, and Ms. Thoms is here to, she's ready to speak to this. So I believe we can, under the rules, we can hear from her first. Would you need more than 2 minutes or 2 minutes?
I can probably get it done in 2 minutes and
Okay.
then available for questions.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
So this is Maureen Thoms, who is the Deputy Director of the Department of Conservation and Development Policy Planning Division of this Contra Costa County.
So
The floor is yours.
thank you. It's nice to be back here. I've served on the CBOC for many, many years, so this is no strange place to me. But I am the Department of Conservation Development Deputy Director. We just finished our housing element for unincorporated Contra Costa County. So the sites that I'll be addressing are Adams Middle School site, which is in unincorporated East Richmond Heights, and Seaview Elementary, which is in unincorporated Montera Bay area or Bayview Park area. I wanted to call to your attention a couple of things on the graph. The site is has a general plan and zoning for residential. So solar farm, logistics, public storage facilities would not be allowed. The other thing is that we have identified both of these sites and assigned a density for them if they cease to be school sites. So let's see, the Board of Supervisors approved the housing element in December of 2023, which increased the density at both Adams Middle School and Seaview sites. The Adams Middle School site And I did, provide links, to Lewis about, the documents where you can find the information. But that's designated to allow 0 to 30 units per acre, which could allow anywhere from 0 to 274 units on the site. We all know that it's, the site is hilly. There's lots of slopes, so that's why there's that range. The Seaview site includes actually 3 parcels on each side of the creek. So that site is allowed to be 17 to 30 units per acre, which if you just take the gross area without any acquisition by East Bay Regional Park District, would be 136 to 237 units if both sides of the creek were to be developed. Additional units could be achieved through a density bonus on both sites if there's affordable units, and there is a requirement for affordable units. Just the inclusionary ordinance that the county has, which is 15%. But if you were to do something like educator workforce housing, you could apply for Measure X funding or HUD funding or community development block grant money to help subsidize those units. Let's see, and then in the housing element, we advise the State Department of Housing and Community Development that we would work with public agencies like West Contra Costa Unified School District to provide technical assistance to get vacant surplus sites developed into housing. I just wanted to note that if a development came forward, for instance, for Seaview for only 21 units, it's not dense enough for the housing that is needed as identified in the housing element. So, thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Just one. The CC&R we were led to believe the CC&R on the Seaview site was controlled.
The county does not enforce CC&Rs. There is some legislation though, that if a school district is to develop the site for housing, for workforce housing, that they can actually skip a lot of the processes to get it developed. And that's as long as the school district is the, owner of the property. They can work together with a nonprofit housing developer to get that done. And in that case, the CC&Rs have no merit. Usually it's a lender who's going to pay attention to CC&Rs when they loan money. The county, as far as considering approval of, apartments, townhouses, subdivision, we do not pay attention to that because that's not something that is subject to zoning rules.
Through the chair, full transparency, we met with Maureen Saturday. I spoke to her.
Friday.
Friday, I'm sorry, we spoke to her at length about these 2 properties, and I was wondering if you could tell the group or clarify the bike path that we discussed.
Yes, there's, I had asked our transportation planner, who also works for the county, to send us information on what the requirements are for East Bay Regional Park District for them to do a bike path. And I believe that the lowest width is 18 feet. But I understand that East Bay Regional Park District was requesting 40 feet. The question that is not answered is, there's a drainage ditch with some wetland vegetation along the perimeter, and it's not clear if that's on railroad property or on the school district's property. So if it is on the school district's property, then the 40 feet width is probably needed. So because you can't build a path on top of a drainage ditch / wetlands.
Okay, one further question, the parcel to the west of the creek
Mhm.
is reportedly a floodplain and,
yeah.
subject to flooding. And your comment was that both parcels could be developed.
Right. They can be developed. It may not be feasible to develop the site on the south side of the creek, and that's simply because the access from San Pablo Avenue to the end of Terra Hills Drive that goes into where the community center is, and two of the parcels. They're very small parcels. There's not good circulation there. So you would need to, from the Southwood side, need to do a vehicular access across.
What about mitigation of the flooding?
That's, that comes later. Yeah, that
Thank
comes
you.
later.
Any other questions? Mr. Gosney?
No questions, I got comments.
Mr. Dawson, you have a comment?
Okay, several comments. Taking that last item, first, as far as the flooding of the south side parcel, that can easily be mitigated by just raising the surface. You bring in more dirt, compact it, so that it's higher than the surrounding areas that where the flooding is coming from. That's something that's done very commonly. Bringing up the same elevation, for instance, as the north parcel. It can be done on there. And the ownership of the property west of our fence line, that's something we need to know. I mean, is that owned by the railroad company or not? I mean, because however much space East Bay Regional Parks needs for the Bay Trail, how much of it has to be part of our property as opposed to maybe splitting it between our property and the railroad area. As I said, I went out there, walked it not that long ago, and there is space to split it. Just rip up the cyclone fence, and all of a sudden you've got space where 1/3 of it, for instance, could be between our fence line and what they consider to be wetlands. And all the wetlands is a ditch that in the wintertime, it's got water in it, during the summertime, it does not anymore. So I mean, even that, a good lawyer might be able to say, well, we can do something with that ditch. But again, it all depends on who owns it. But that's a problem that East Bay Regional Parks would have to deal with on there. Because we can't control anything that has to do with the railroads. But I'm not advocating giving away or selling at a discount our part of Seaview for East Bay Regional Parks, unless they can provide more information, more answers to a number of the questions that I've been posing. We don't have to bring up here.
Any other comments? Sure. So, okay, Ms. Thomas, thank you very much for information. All right, with respect, we're still at the top of the list here, and items, given the remarks that we just had, items D through F are eliminated from our consideration. So, and item A, the density of the housing, if I heard things correctly, it was from 17 to 30 units per acre, and that site has approximately 9 usable acres from our earlier discussion, which is which affects the valuation part, which is in the lower part, and that's from our presentation back in 2022. So with respect to the 4 remaining possible uses of the site, open market housing, eliminating the lines for 6 units per acre, workforce housing, charter school, or recreational facilities. So I'd like to go through those and see what priorities each one has. So what I'd like you to do is to look first at the bottom of the list, which is recreational facilities, and then look at item C, which is charter school. Between those 2 items, by a show of hands, who considers the recreational facilities as a higher priority than a charter school use.
Chair, could I ask a clarifying question first? Maureen Thompson can respond to that. With regards to recreational facilities, didn't I understand that you say that the county will only approve residential reuse for that site?
Typically, recreational facilities, could be considered on a
Okay.
residential site,
All right.
just like you have a neighborhood park.
Thank you.
Okay, once again, just by a show of hands, is raise your hand if you believe that recreational facilities are of a higher priority than a charter school. 1, 2,
Oh.
3,
We have to,
Okay.
you're asking for a vote.
I have,
If you could raise your hands again, I can.
okay, please keep your hands up so they can be recorded,
Recreational facility higher
and charter school. 4-0.
On to. Again, have that alone.
Well, all right. Again, taking recreational facilities and looking at item B, since we've elevated recreational facilities above charter school, recreational facilities versus workforce housing. If you believe that recreational facilities are more important than workforce housing, please raise your hand.
I'm sorry, I better,
Another question?
another question on there. We'd asked for presentations on workforce housing. I did a tremendous amount of research just today and been provided information by a lot of trustees and Maureen Thompson and everything about the 5 school districts in California that have implemented workforce housing. It'd be nice, before we start ranking workforce housing above or below open market housing, it'd be nice to actually have a decent presentation about what can happen there, what has been successful up and down the state when it comes to workforce housing. Because,
Do you have a source in mind, Mr. Gosney?
sorry,
Do you have a source in?
the California State Building Trades Guy, School Board Association has got a tremendous amount of information on their website, including many hours of videos showing it, both what they've done, how it works, how the financing comes into play, but also detailed links for each of those 5 school
Do
districts.
you have a human source in mind?
No,
Okay, would you please, since your interest is there, could you locate a human source?
I have no idea where to go to get a human source, especially for the 3 in Los Angeles, for instance, or the one in Daly City or the one in Santa Clara County.
I'll look into it then, and we'll postpone this part of it.
Okay. I mean, I'd asked for a presentation on this, and I asked for information from WCCUSD trustee 03 Christian and Contra Costa Board of Education trustee Consuelo Lara, but I got no responses to numerous, including Friday. I've asked for more information, just no usable information.
Okay. Let me see what I can do. I have a source elsewhere. Yes.
I agree with Don as far as presentations, but I would definitely keep an eye out for someone that's neutral,
Yes,
as opposed to somebody that's biased and is in favor of workforce housing.
Okay.
but part of the problem we've got is we are hearing one-on-one from several of the trustees who've already made up their mind on this. So that I'm not sure that they would be the best source of unbiased information. That's a concern.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've all been lobbied.
Let me see. Well, they haven't called me yet.
If I can briefly,
Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to reiterate what I had mentioned at the last meeting, that you guys are going very much down the road of how to do it, not if you want to do it. Do you want workforce housing at any one of these 3 sites?
We don't know until someone.
No, we can build workforce housing at all 3 of them. I mean, there's ways to do it. The question before this committee is, do you think it's a good idea, a good use of the property? Do you want workforce housing at this? Do you want recreational facilities at this? The chair was trying to do a forced ranking, I think is where you were going with that. And I understand where you're gonna go, Mr. Gosney, that you want to have more information on how to do it. No, that's what you're asking. If you want to have data on all the previous projects that have been done and all the current projects that are going on and all the ones that are being planned, that's how to do it. Do you guys want workforce housing? That's the question before this committee. The board has to make the decision, not how to do it and how to make it up. You're making a recommendation.
Hang on.
Okay, anyway, I'll pause there, but this is reiterating what I was saying. You're getting down the road of how, not do you want it? This is a recommendation from this committee.
Hang on. What do I think?
I think with me, it's more of the data factor of what's gonna bring in, what's gonna be financially more doable for our district. And when I say that is, you know, we're talking about like, are we gonna get more, if we're talking about surplus or sell, are we gonna get more money coming in? Recommending one thing versus another. And I think that's what we're here for, to kind of to figure out not so much what they're gonna do, because I'll say it again, you know, what they decide to do with these sites, but all we're doing is recommending. And they're still, if their mind's made up, their mind's made up, but what's gonna actually bring, what's gonna be more financially viable for the district. And I think that that's where, like, you know, workforce housing, is that gonna be something versus regular housing? And, you know, those, I think those are my questions, like, we're just talking about housing. Versus, you know, recreational facilities, are we just like all of a sudden now giving up this land, or are we selling it? Like, who gets first bids on it? I think that's important. Because I know that we have to go down a list of like who we can offer to it, who we can offer these sites to first. And it might not be a top priority on our list. But if we're talking about, okay, we're all up for recreational, but then we have to offer it to X, Y, and Z first before we hit that recreational offering, does that even make sense that we put recreational at the top of our list?
Son?
I think I'm agreeing with Lupe. And I wonder if there's a need in the middle here of saying, kind of ranking what we're interested in and hearing the viability. Because when I think about workforce housing, I immediately think, yes, amazing. If it was leased and we're getting rent and there's revenue and teachers can live, win-win. And ideally, the cost you can't quantify is, are we going to retain teachers that are being priced out of the area? And I don't know if any workforce development in the state has existed long enough to answer that question. I think that would be a question I'd be really interested in, if anyone has the data. So I wonder if we could do the ranking and still see if we can get the data. Both can exist.
You comment on?
Well, yes, well, first off, one of those Los Angeles districts has been had workforce housing since 2009.
Oh, good. So it's.
Yeah, and several of the others around 2017. I think two of the others in 2017. So, I mean, that 2017, that's not enough time, but 2009 may give you some information, but there was so much information I was seeing on the website this afternoon that I couldn't absorb it all. And especially several hours worth of videos explaining all that. I didn't have a chance to look at all that. But my concern is not so much in the details about how to make it work, but the details about it completely. I mean, I can't decide whether workforce housing should be a higher priority than open market without knowing more than just a title, the generality of workforce housing. I'm not against workforce housing at all, but the devil is in the details about who's going to pay for it, for instance, who's going to own it, and who's going to manage it. And these are little things that we have to know before I can rank it one way or the other, or we can make a recommendation to the public and the school board about whether to even go this route or whether to go this route above open market housing. But there is the detail about, I mean, the minor details about how to make it work. I'm not ignoring that, but it's not solely just that. I think that it's incumbent, right?
I've got two hands coming up. Donna, you can.
I know you've already shut me down.
No, I haven't shut you down. I just want you to make your final point. And then
Okay, go ahead.
in Guadalupe and then Art.
No, I just wanna agree with Dawn. I mean, I think even looking at the data of where other, especially when we're talking about workforce housing, I know that we've talked a lot about, the district having, certain leeways to be able to get it done, if that was something that was chosen, if we decided that the district is gonna be the one taking this on versus having somebody come in doing it. And I think even if we get the data of, how's it working in other places, I think we have to take local data as well. When we're talking about like, do they have rent control in LA? We do have really high rent control when it comes to Richmond, and I think there's a lot of that once you're talking about, especially with the details of like workforce housing, like what does that look like? Like I said, and is it something that we can push far enough to where we're gonna have enough funding? And like I said, I really want to put up there recommendations that are gonna stick, and not just recommendations that are just gonna go in one ear out the other and just, kind of fall in.
Art?
Yeah, well, I can appreciate counselors' statements. I see workforce housing as being a very romantic idea. That being said, I don't know enough about it to make an informed decision, and that's all I'm saying. I don't know if it's failed, and I certainly don't want to pass anything or recommend anything that's failed in the state. So I just personally feel that we need more information about workforce housing before we come close to ranking it or voting on it.
I guess is sticking around in my mind is, as a former teacher at Adams Middle School, I remember the site well. And so I could see its attractiveness to housing in general, whether it's workforce or open market. And I think housing would be a good match for the surrounding neighborhood, which is already housing, single family detached homes. Density is a separate issue. And as a person who was at the bottom of the salary schedule when starting out, I know how tough it is for people who are starting out. I had certain advantages, they do not. So, it's not a settled issue for them. I would be interested in looking at the mix, because we were talking earlier, Ms. Thomas presented about what percentage of housing units would be reserved for affordable housing. And certainly affordable housing would fall and satisfy both the workforce housing and the issue of workforce housing and affordable housing, because that's what beginning teachers need. And so far as a site, a livable site, it's a great site. What do we think?
Question. When we put up these recommendations, we are also to put our opinion on why we think, is that gonna be included? Why we think this is a viable solution to the site? And I think that could probably kind of go the pros and the cons of like, we are recommending this because we think this is gonna bring in, more housing, especially if we incorporate, X amount of, low income housing, and the pros and, what some of the cons from our side might be too. I'm saying that because, we're keep talking about the information that we get maybe from other sites, but I don't see it being able to compare apples to apples and, things like that, but maybe saying, these are the risk factors when kind of going this way from our point of view, because we might not have enough information, some things are not, well suited yet, with time. And then, the pros of it is we might be able to retain teachers, we might be able to do this, we might be able, but those are just, pros and cons, I think, when we are putting up our recommendation.
I have some ideas based on what I've heard. And so we've talked about workforce housing, and I think some excellent points have been made. And part of what I was picking up in some of those points is what are some of the intentions and goals of the recommendation, right? And so we heard, teacher recruitment and retention. We heard, housing. I heard, revenue generating for the district, right, is one of the goals, an ongoing revenue or a one-time revenue. And so as I was listening, to kind of everyone share their thoughts about workforce housing, part of what I was hearing were a couple of different ideas. And so just wanted to reflect that back to the committee and say, maybe that helps to not necessarily define, but speaking to, I think, what you were just stating about helping the board understand those considerations you've made and really what you see the goals of that priority use being. So that when that recommendation comes forward, instead of it just being more generic, it really speaks to what you guys see those values are and maybe how you ranked that priority use. And so I know that it is going to be difficult. And so part of what the committee may be asking staff to do is looking at how to bring a resource in to do the presentation. And so to do that well, we really need to understand, what is the value of bringing that information in. And I really do fear that the feasibility, the reports and the data that we would need to do to give you more comprehensive data that would really apply to these sites, it's a little cost and time prohibitive without that being what is being ultimately pursued. And so I think it's important for us to understand maybe more about the questions and what are the different things that you'd like to know more about. But I also think that you may be able to meet your intentions by attaching some of your goals and intentions for these recommendations into them, adding a little bit more description to if you're prioritizing workforce housing, you're prioritizing it because of these goals. So hopefully what I said just made sense. I was trying to kind of hear the different perspectives and try to reflect that back.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the point that, why can't, like Adams and, Seaview be a combination of both workforce housing and, market value housing? And also, we have never, I'm not so sure that everybody in this room understands what affordable housing is. And how much you have to make, because it's a little bit of an oxymoron, like nonprofit. And Maureen and, we discussed what the, affordable housing, numbers are. If you'd like to reiterate if through the chair, if it's okay.
Let me ask you, Ms. Thomas, could you put some substance behind the term affordable housing?
Sure. If I may, there's, in Contra Costa County, you have an area median income. Without me looking at it, I think it's around $143,000 per year for a family of 4. So low income is considered 50% of that. It's actually considered, if a family is making only 80% of that, they are considered low income. So there are some charts if you want to look at income limits, Contra Costa County. And I can send you an email with the link later. So there are categories of low income, is very low income, extremely low income, and then the state legislature is looking at a new label of acutely low income. But most of your staff, your certified staff is going to be in the low income level. If it's, if they are a family, a family of, well, whatever size, teachers and the secretarial staff and custodians, are typically in the low income category unless they have, you know, two people working in the household. But if you have a, you know, single, employed head of household, they're most likely gonna be in low.
And that would be subsidized housing.
It's
No.
not necessarily subsidized. What it is depending on what the, funding source is. They will have a restricted rent. And the restricted rent, in order to get those, the subsidies to build a development, the restrictions have to go on for 45 to 55 years, depending on what type of, development it is. So it's not subsidized, but it's, restricted. So for instance, if the school district was to do a request for development proposals and wanted to do affordable workforce housing, they could get a developer like Bridge Housing or Eden Housing or many of the other nonprofits that know how to finance these things. And it's usually public money, so those come with restrictions on what the rent can be.
For 45 to 55 years.
Correct.
And if I can real quick.
Yes.
That's, you're absolutely accurate. I think what you're talking about probably is LIHTC, so low-income housing tax credits for the developer.
Right.
That would link into this.
Yeah, that's one funding source.
And I've been resisting saying what I'm about to say. There's probably 3 or 4 attorneys that work for school districts that do workforce housing. I happen to be one of them. And none of them that I've worked on have, we can't use LIHTC. There's a contrary pressure on teacher salaries if you're trying to comply with LIHTC, so you avoid doing that. And there are some areas of the state where the affordable housing requirements, so 80% of the AMI, and then 120 for median income. There's some pressure on those as well. So we are very, very conscious of whether or not we get locked into an affordable housing or a BMR, below market rate housing, because we don't want undue pressure on salaries for the next, 50 years on teachers. So that's why it's a very complex, math intense deal at that point. Projects can go on and go do that. And it's, the financing of it is extremely important. And virtually none of them are built by schools, districts by themselves. They partner with the developer, EHP, or the ones that Durham, or the ones you've spoken of. Because those are the ones that are experts at doing it, and they do affordable housing. And this is a different thing for them. Workforce housing is a different little animal for them because they don't rely on LIHTC funding. They can't. Again, the undue pressures on California's teacher and classified. We don't want that pressure. So they're complex in doing it. Could it work? Yes. There are 2 statutes that have been passed in the last year and a half, AB 2295 and SB 35, and they are very helpful for school districts. Not that we get to ignore the county's affordable housing, but we find a way to work through it. I know I'm over talking.
You can ignore those, CCNRs.
Yes, absolutely. And the general plan amendment, we can avoid the general plan amendment as well. So when you asked, I want a presentation on it, we could spend 4 months doing a presentation on it. It's the presentation I would do with the board. And I wasn't trying to be dismissive of this committee. It's really, really complex to do it. And I come back to my question, do you want to do affordable housing, workforce housing, employee housing? Some people call it teacher housing, but it's not only teachers, it's everybody. Great, we could probably find a way to make it work. You had good questions. The district probably wouldn't manage it. We'd hire a third party to manage it. Who would do the construction? It probably wouldn't be formally bid. It would be, we'd bid it out to an apartment builder, frankly. So all these things get complex. That's a lot for a 7-Eleven committee. So anyway, I'll stop now.
Okay, so Art, you had a question?
Yeah, one last question or comment. So can we mix workforce housing?
With market rate?
With market rate on the individual properties?
We've done those before, where a portion, I don't want to take over this meeting, where a development was, let's say, 500 units. And to comply with that city's particular BMRs, the below market rate housing, they partnered with the school district. And it was the employees of that school district that are going to be in that low and median income. Now, to be fair, it's a part of the state where the AMI is. It's where that was sustainable, but it was part of an overall development. And the part that the 3 buildings, one of the buildings is going to be school district employees, the other 2 are market rate housing. So it's doable. Again, really complex, took us 4.5 years to negotiate it. Way more information than, that is it's not your burden. I understand you want to know more information, but this particular topic is gigantic.
So yes, we can mix both
You can.
elements on one property.
And you could, as a committee, recommend to the board, can you work on workforce housing and look at opportunities to pair it up with market rate housing? Sure, that could be a recommendation to the board. Or no, don't do workforce housing. We want you to do 100% market rate because maybe you'll make more money. So what do you guys want to do?
Okay. Don?
You know, since it was brought up about affordable housing, we all know the need for affordable housing. But whatever happens there, market rate or workforce housing, whatever plans, they have to go before the county design board and then before the board of supervisors for approval of these plans. And that's where you get community pushback. Most communities don't really like to have affordable housing because they're not as nice as market rate housing. You know, when you put a $2 million house next door to my $500,000 house, now my property's worth a little bit more. But you put a $100,000 house next to my $500,000 house, now my property's worth less. And so you got a lot of pushback from communities when you end up with a lot of affordable housing. And so that's something that has to be kept in mind as well. If you go solidly with all workforce housing, then it might not be quite as bad, even though we know it's affordable. It's, you're not mixing, you know, really expensive stuff with less expensive stuff in there. Because we cannot ignore the political reality that the community will have pushback, because we've seen it all over the place. And this time it won't be with the city of Richmond, or won't be with the city of Pinole, it'll be with the county.
And if I can return to, where I started this thing, which was better, charter school or workforce housing. And we went quite a distance into housing in general and workforce housing. Should I take it that charter schools are less important than housing, or whether workforce or open market?
So I thought we'd already, we were discussing charter school versus recreational.
I don't recall, I don't believe we recorded a vote on that.
We
Recorded a vote?
We did. The committee unanimously ranked recreational facilities higher than charter school.
Okay.
And then you started to ask them to rank two more, but we didn't even get into that. We got into a discussion there. So
So
we are only on the,
we're at, where are we still comparing recreational facilities with housing, whether workforce or open market?
you had not asked that question.
No,
yet.
you
Correct.
asked us to discuss.
So
The two houses.
let me get that part settled,
Okay,
all right? So with respect to recreational facilities versus workforce housing, because I listened to this separately, I just would like to have a feel for the committee on which you prefer.
so recreational facilities versus
Is workforce housing. If you prefer recreational facilities, raise your hand. And the preference is no. Then-
For the Adams.
So let me say it in a more, for Adams, let me say it in a more affirmative way. If you prefer workforce housing over recreational facilities, raise your hand.
I'm sorry, can you combine, just say housing?
We'll get there. I just want to deal with the list that's presented, Don.
Okay, I know, but,
Please refer to, it's B versus G on the list.
okay, but now, with the vote that you're proposing, what happens if I decide I want recreational facilities above open market? Okay.
It's already been dismissed.
Well, what? No, we haven't even talked about that.
Okay.
but that's a difference. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I'm on for the minutes.
Okay.
John's you're referring to Harmon Knowles?
No,
No,
we're on
no,
Adams
no,
only.
We're at
Okay.
Adams.
We're just to that.
All right,
Make sure we're on the same page.
excuse my misspeaking, we will keep on going with the forced comparison, okay? So, everyone in favor of workforce housing over recreational facilities, please raise your hand. 4-0. Go to the next one. If you prefer recreational facilities over open market housing, raise your hand. Seeing none, let me
I'm sorry.
rephrase it.
We need to go a little slower for the minute taker.
Okay,
Recreational versus
open market housing.
open market housing. Okay,
If you prefer open market housing over recreational facilities, please raise your hand.
If
This
you-
is preferring
Repeat that.
open market housing over recreational facilities. 4-0. Okay, so now let's go back to comparing. I wanna get charter schools, through this. So let me compare charter schools to workforce housing. If you prefer workforce housing over charter schools, raise your hand. Prefer workforce housing over charter schools. 4-0. Okay. Just for drill, if you prefer open market housing over charter schools, raise your hand. 4-0. So charter schools,
so open market housing to charter school. Open, it was, I didn't catch those.
4-0 in favor of open market housing. So now we're down to the nitty gritty. Workforce housing over open market housing. If you prefer open market housing over workforce housing, raise your hand.
I can't answer that intelligently.
I can't either.
Okay, then those two, we're just gonna consider them, in a tie and resolve with some sort of tiebreaker and or a mix.
I can't put that in the.
Okay,
So we can just
let me,
leave them off.
yeah,
Both were favorable.
they're both favorable.
And what if, could we try to make a motion to? I motion that we put open housing, 6 unit per acre under existing zoning, and B, workforce housing.
Hold on, that's.
Yeah, to mix it, I mean, can't we do both? Like, that's what I'm making a
You
motion.
can,
Okay,
I have to take down everything you say. for
okay, well,
motion, though, so
I'm just reading it off of here.
So just give it a moment. So you're moving to rank,
Not to rank, to combine. To combine open housing, 6 units per acre under existing zoning and workforce housing into one recommendation.
I recommend you remove the 6 units per.
hold on one
acre.
moment, the motion was quite. For the minutes, we have to have the motions clear before we get into a discussion and then get the second.
Okay, can I just,
Because
okay,
that's
let me,
not what we have here is, I wanna make sure that I'm getting it right. You're saying open
okay, can we just do
housing
the
where it
open
says
market
open market.
housing
Open
and
market.
workforce housing combined into one recommendation?
And so you're moving to combine open housing and market housing into one recommendation or one category?
No, open market housing and workforce housing.
in-
That would be A and B
Right.
into one recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded that we combine workforce housing and open market housing with respect to the Adams Middle School site as a priority is. Any discussion?
We defer to the people on Zoom or anything.
Do we have anyone on Zoom offering a comment?
I don't see any hands at this time. What I just did for the folks following along at home was I just scanned the document that was provided at the meeting and I have it now showing on the screen. And there are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, so the motion is to combine items A and B with the deletion of the reference to 6 units per acre. I'm sorry, I'll let the
Right,
parliamentary
you read it.
read it
Okay. Guadalupe moved to combine open market housing and workforce housing into one recommendation for Adams as a priority use. Who
Yeah.
seconded?
And that was seconded. And just an observation, this entry about 6 units per acre is a leg, vestiges of earlier discussions and earlier meetings of the committee. And it no longer applies given the input from Ms. Toms from, county planning. So, right? Is that everyone? Okay, any further discussion? All right. All in favor of combining the two? If there are no objections, okay. If there are no objections, then the motion passes. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
That was refreshing.
Should we celebrate?
That's somewhere.
Yeah. Okay,
So just a point of clarification. Before we pass anything along to anybody else, all the information provided on the lower half of this table is so old and outdated that I worry about somebody seeing it and thinking that it's the current truth.
well, the dates are there, and can I just, I'll let Melissa speak to this because Mr. Freeze and I had discussed this. Melissa, are you aware of the comment from Terra Realty with respect to the changes in valuation?
Yes, so after a previous 7-Eleven committee meeting, where we did receive feedback from Ms. Tom's, wonderful resource. We did reach back out to Terra Realty and we did ask them to look at the new information from the plan adopted in December of 23 as compared to the valuations that were provided previously to the committee. And in the response from Terra Realty, part of what they said is that these values do take into consideration that new data, but that there are constrictions on the site. And so knowing that we do have some sites, as we talked about earlier today in today's meeting, where it's in a floodplain. So there would be additional construction requirements to develop on that site, that was taken into consideration in the conversation with Adams. We know that because the fault line does run through that area, we also know that there is the building that is still there at Adams. And so the demolition of the building, these would all be additional costs, which would ultimately drive what the value of the site would be when a developer was looking for it. And so we did just recently ask, and he looked and said that these are still good opinion of values for the sites. They just take into consideration the site encumbrances, which we've reviewed at previous meetings.
Don?
Okay, with regards to Adams in particular, I have a problem with the latter part of it where it says townhome sites that would later sell for $1 million each. We have no idea what they're gonna sell for. And so, I mean, you don't put down information that is pure guesswork and speculation. If they're all affordable housing, they're not gonna be $1 million each. You don't put down information as well.
Your point's well taken. Look at the date with respect to that. Those are from my notes of September 13, 2022. So almost 2 years ago. So, I would hope that a reasonable person would understand that it's dated and therefore not as accurate as it could be. Those are my notes from listening to Terra Realty's presentation. I put them there because, as you may recall, at an earlier meeting, they were asking for a presentation with respect to valuation. So the notes, and because I had the information from Mr. Freeze that the representatives of Terra Realty weren't changing their opinions with respect to valuation. So I put them in there so that they would be before this committee. Because not all members of the committee, as it sits at the moment, are members of the committee when those numbers were presented. In other words, they don't have a current memory, even a fading memory of those values. They weren't presented to them. So I put them there so they would at least have them in front of them. Given the information about the zoning and the changes, which occurred well after this, I can understand how that there would be different values. However, we're talking about the valuation of the site, not necessarily what it would bring on the retail market unit by unit. So your point's well taken with respect to $1 million, because right now, if we're talking about a small house in El Cerrito or a larger house in Richmond, you know, we're there. The $1 million each is probably a fair representation. A condominium in Richmond is $500,000.
More
So
than that.
if that,
More than that.
more than that, yeah. So, you know, we can, the valuation of the site before anything is built on it is really what we're looking at there. What would a developer pay for the site? 6.5 to 9.1 million. That's for the site. Without anything, so that the demolition and everything else has to be rolled into the cost of developing the site. It was presented, it's there. You know, your point's well taken. Can we move on?
We already did.
Okay. We go to Herman Knowles. Herman Knowles, this committee, as presently constituted, voted to retain Herman Knowles. And given the presentation that was done, Art invited me to, and you were there, Don, at the presentation of the church in the Fairmead Hilltop area with respect to future development of Hilltop. So the numbers of units that were proposed for Hilltop, they're included there. That's the latest information I have. And the open market value that was shown earlier, open market use in 90 units at 18 units per acre, which is in the city of Richmond, so Richmond zoning will apply. That's still there. It's just, does the committee, we voted to retain it. But the information, I just wanted the information to be before the committee. And because, and we can kind of move on from there, because the vote of the committee was to retain the site for future development for school. And I really don't see the point of going back and reviewing that again, because we've already been through that fight. So let's move on to Portal.
I have a question.
Guadalupe?
So I think, so the information before us would be only information that you're showing to the committee, not to the board, right? So when we're, the Harmon
Not to the
knows
board of
like what it is.
trustees.
And I'm saying because I have a problem, I think personally, you know, I voted to retain it, but not because we're retaining it means that we're also including what we see that it could be used for, I think, in the future. So I think because right here you have future schools to serve. That's why the reasoning behind why we're retaining it might not be the reason why I want to retain it. And I'm just saying it, so I'm just saying that we're taking it off. You know, anything, I think we just say that we recommend Harvard Mills to be retained, and unless then we're gonna go into conversation about why we want to retain it and why some of us think it's a feasible thing, and I think that's gonna then open up a whole nother kind of worms.
I'm not trying to edit things. I'm trying to give the information that I had. So, so the valuation, the 90 units, the 18 units per acre, that's all information that I had. And perhaps I made an error in including that information, but that's what I had. So when I started going through the notes, from September of 2022. That's what was there. I understand that our decision supersedes that.
And I
So-
don't want to tap into the top portion, so I'm just saying if it's not on, we're not giving any recommendation on that site except for it to be, retained, then I don't think it should have any recommendation attached to it. That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked, is this document something that you're only showing to us? And we're having conversation over it, or is this gonna somehow be also included to the board when we say our recommendation is to retain it, but to be used for future, I think then we're going into other conversations. So my, hope would be that, we just surplus, that we're just retaining with no attachments to it. Unless you wanna have a whole conversation on what we think we should do with the site if it is in surplus.
I have to make a point. It's going to be attached to the minutes of this meeting. So it will be in the minutes of the meeting. Nevertheless, we can have a motion. You can make a motion to delete all references to valuation of the property in the following, as a consequence of our saying that it should be retained. So when we issue our report, we can avoid, we don't have to necessarily give it a valuation if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm asking, that I'm not saying to delete it from the minutes or, what we're talking about. I just think when we do our recommendations to the board, it not be included other than, we decided to retain with no attachments on the usage of it.
Okay, parliamentarian has a point.
Because it sounds like you're trying to make a motion, so I'm trying to clarify the
I'm not
motion.
trying to make, I was just trying to get a clarifying question on what this document was. Like, I didn't know
Right,
if
so it'll
this,
be in the minutes.
so it would be in the minutes, but I didn't understand if it was gonna be something that now is attached also to our recommendations moving forward to the board. So that was my, is this something that is gonna move forward with these attachments to it?
It's you. Currently, yes, because this is what the chair is using for the report. However, if you wanted to make the motion. What I heard you say was that you only wanted the report to state that Harmon Knowles be retained.
Because I think that's what we decided, that we were gonna retain Harmon Knowles, but I don't think we voted on the usage of why we were retaining Harmon Knowles.
I thought it was for future school site.
For a future school site.
Okay, well, I don't have my notes. I'm sorry, I have no notes that, kind of, there we go to why we need, clarifying
Yeah,
notes
Yeah, if
for
I can,
previous meetings, because
can I speak to staff for 10 seconds?
That would be great. Maybe add some clarification.
Staff's gonna be helping you write the report. You guys are gonna have to review it, everything else. I think what you're asking, Lupe, is, and it can go either way. I hesitate saying this because this could be another half an hour conversation, but you're asking, are we gonna simply state that the committee recommends it not be made surplus, period? Or as the discussion was at the last meeting, the committee recommends it not be made surplus and maintain it for a potential future school site. And if that's the question you're asking, that second phrase, then that's a discussion that the committee should probably come to a conclusion on. And then that would be what would ultimately be in the report. So I think it's up to the committee if they want that two-phrased sentence or the simple sentence.
well, I was just asking because here we have two options. So you know how we did rank
Yep.
choice, and here it's not just one choice. That, that's where my mind went. I don't remember what I did yesterday, so I probably don't remember when we took this vote. And because we do have two options on here, it's like, did we decide that day that we were gonna do either or? And is that gonna be now attached to the recommendation on surplus, on retaining it with the attachment of for a future school or open market housing, 90 units at, whatever, because this is what's on the sheet.
Art's hand is going up and down.
Well, I mean, since I've been here, we've never discussed housing for that property. The only thing we've discussed is, retaining it for a future school site.
Well, that was my,
Right.
I think that's your point.
You're correct. The retained for housing was the September 13, 2022 information from Tara Realty.
And I think her concern is omitting that information because that's not what we've discussed, or that is because we don't want that to be considered a recommendation.
Okay. So would you please move to delete references in the future to market values of housing on the Harmon Knolls side?
If we do that, that's gonna carry through for like the future. I think what you're referring to is just item B.
I'm referring to, yeah, to B, because like I said, I don't remember what we voted on last time.
That's fine.
I
And,
never talked about this.
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't remember what we talked about, and I don't have minutes to remind me.
Just,
So the minutes would reflect, if we can do, if there's no objection, item open market housing, 90 units, at 18 units per acre will no longer be considered.
Okay.
the only thing that was discussed in the future school site.
All right, so if I can rephrase this. Dorothy, your motion is,
No objection.
oh,
You can do it.
I can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, if there is no objection, then item B under Harmon Knolls will be removed and not referred to with respect to any recommendation on Harmon Knolls in the future.
It just needs to be this. If
Yeah,
you say
repeat
in the
that, like,
future, they can never
Okay.
go back to that.
Okay.
Just this item.
We're gonna
B.
delete item B under Harmon Knolls, if there is no objection. Hearing no objection, item B is deleted. Please cross it out on your list.
Under order.
Yes,
So underneath, future, school to serve Hilltop, a development of 5,000 to 7,500 residential units existing, in the Hill. Oh, I got you. You're referring to serving the potential housing.
serving the development
Okay.
plus the existing housing in Fairmead Hilltop.
Yeah. I'm good. Moving on.
All right. Moving on to boardwalk. We have items A, B, and C. C was listed just in general, some sort of retail or commercial development, not specified, but some income generating commercial or retail development. So I'm gonna do a show of hands again.
Before we get that far, can I add an item on there that's come up since our last meeting? For
What would you
consideration,
like to add, Don?
that we make a recommendation that part of the property be reused for the master gardening program.
Okay,
That's a half acre that they've got right now.
so.
So at least the board can consider it.
And with respect to, I don't know. Don, are you the spokesperson for it?
John,
Yeah.
Dawn? Oh, Don, I couldn't see you.
Yeah, let's see, we're moving past, it sounded like you were making a motion.
No,
And if you
I
are,
asked,
I want
I
it
asked
to-
a simple question. I know how to make a motion. I asked to add an item to there.
That's correct. That's what I'm saying. Is that a motion? In order to add, we have to have a
Yeah.
motion.
We didn't
Dawn.
have a motion to put any of these on there. We just started tossing them and attaching them to the board.
Don, easy.
Don, I'm doing the minutes, and to do this properly, I'm asking if that is a motion. This sheet was brought forward in consideration by the chair, which is why we're talking about it. However, I want to make sure that your addition to this sheet, if that's what you want, is properly put in and in the minutes so that we can add it. So if it's a motion, I need to capture it, please.
I will make a motion.
Okay,
No, don't interrupt me, please. Let me finish this sentence. I will make a motion that we include consideration of the UC Berkeley Master Gardening Program to Portola Middle School site.
if I could repeat that we include consideration of the UC Berkeley Master
Hold on,
Gardening
I'm
site,
being
is
corrected.
that correct? I'm verifying that is. your motion.
I'm being corrected by the people that run it. Please tell me what you want corrected.
It's UC Master Gardener Program.
Master Gardener program.
Thank you for the correction.
And no, Berkeley, we're not associated with UC Berkeley, we're in a different part of the university.
All right,
So if I hear that correctly, it would change your motion to consideration of the Master Gardener program site is what you would like included.
Yes, let's-
yes.
Let's add of Contra Costa County just to be specific.
So, is it the Contra Costa Master Gardener program or
Yeah, let me,
is it before or after?
it is the UC Master Gardener Program of Contra Costa County.
Okay, yeah. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
It's not fast enough.
Okay. I'm not sure if I could read this back so that we get it exactly right. We'll make sure that Don's happy with the motion. Don moves to add consideration of the UC Master Gardener program of Contra Costa County site. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
If there are no objections.
Second. I'll second it.
Thank you, Barbara. If there are no objections, the motion passes. So I'm adding this to the list as item D under Cordova. Consideration of the UC Master Gardener Program of Contra Costa County. All right,
I was just curious, do we know how much property that entails?
I was about to ask the question, and that's why I was trying to
Tobacco.
get to, Don, I thought.
The current site is 0.45 acres.
Hang on,
So approximately 1/2 an acre.
okay,
We measured it. the
So-
other day.
so we're talking about seeding, use of 1/2 acre of the site to, the UC Master Gardener Program. Yes, go ahead.
I think I just had a question. I hear that that's the acreage that they're using currently. And I also heard expansion. Yeah, and I'm only wondering if we can offer them or recommend a bigger site. Cause I think if we're limiting them to what they're currently doing, then I know there's not gonna be any room for expansion. Versus if we can, give them that acre site, maybe that'll hold them off if that's something that we decide to recommend for future usage. Just to accommodate the. I don't, acre doesn't seem big, but.
Do we have a slide of the property?
We do. Melissa, can you bring that up on the screen? The Cordova site,
Would you like the,
the aerial shot of the slopes of Cordova with between, Mosher and Cordova. At Navalier.
just one moment, let me pull that file.
Will be in here. Over here on the screen.
Okay, thank you. And so we can see, where the master. That's not. So the master gardener program site is visible on the screen.
So it's just that one corner, right?
Yeah.
And if we double that, that would give us about approximately half that bottom line area, right? I
Well,
mean.
the
give or
estimated area of the site is 5.29 acres, and if they're asking for an acre,
take, those is just double
that's
it, right?
20% of the site. Which in, whether you believe these valuation figures or not, is not an inconsiderable amount of money.
Really?
Don?
When I was out there on Saturday, I said physically measured, and what I measured is a larger area. When I said 0.45 acres is a larger area than what you're seeing here right now. And I know that from our discussions, we even asked this question. They said they'd gladly take the whole site. You know, and I don't blame them. But we have to ask ourselves, so this is a community benefit giveaway. Okay, they're not gonna be paying market value for this piece of property, and we need to ask ourselves, how much of the revenue generating part of this property are we willing to give away? And I don't believe that doubling this would best serve our community as far as generating revenue. I think that I saw a lot of room for expansion with the part that I measured out at 0.45 acres.
I think my comeback to that would be that, and I think Don brought it up earlier, you know, when we were talking about low income housing and in certain neighborhoods. And I think, you know, going that route, if we're planning on even considering, you know, open housing market at the estimate value that's above, that could probably generate a little bit more money, knowing that, you know, right now we're moving into California green, and you know, I think that's gonna, you know, some point add value versus take away if we decided to go with, you know, low income mix of low income housing in this area, which might be a pushback, like Don said, from the community in those hills versus full value. Cause I mean, right here, we're talking about open market housing, like how much money is that not gonna bring in compared to mixes somewhere else? And that's my only comeback to that with giving.
Any comment? Don and then Art.
My motion was to bring this before the board and the public for consideration of including the Master Garden Program, on the site. How much space would be something to be argued before the board at the appropriate time, and not necessarily here.
Art and then go to work.
So my question would be, does anybody in this room know what the lease looks like? And when is it set to expire?
I think that's a question back for the people. from
Yeah,
the
we
state.
have a current agreement. We're working in partnership with Berkeley Partners for Parks with Pacific Oaks Community Garden. It's near to expire. We have a MOU that has been drafted and approved by the UC Controller's Office that is in Louise Freeze's hands right now.
I have no doubt in my mind about the cultural and other benefits of the program. My question is there an exchange of funds between anybody with respect to the program?
That's something that we could discuss at some point.
Okay. Well,
I think I agree with Don that I think here we're recommending. So not because, you know, I decide to add this to a recommendation means that the board is gonna go for it. They might be told the whole idea. So I think, you know, we don't lose anything by actually recommending, because they might decide that, you know, 0.45, if that's what they have, is enough. Because we're technically recommending.
any other comment? I would like to offer a suggestion, which is that we recommend to the board that whoever develops the property include a reservation, for want of a better term, or to incorporate the UC Master Gardener program into the design of the site. So the program could continue where it is, but perhaps not exactly on the same piece of ground.
Mr. Are you putting that forward as a motion and
I-
you're asking for no
I-
objections?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Here,
Just so I get it to the,
here I go.
okay.
So the motion that's on the table right now is gonna be just thrown away?
No, the
The motion
motion,
passed, the last
motion
motion
passed,
passed.
we put it on the sheet here.
All right.
It's in the minutes. I wanna make sure we're on the right. Should I repeat it? The
No,
motion, the last
no, we
motion
don't
that
need to
was
repeat.
made was Don Mostad consideration of the UC Master Gardener Program of Contra Costa County site. It was seconded and the motion was adopted with no objection. So there's no other motion on the table at the moment. Nothing, no one led with, so
Okay,
you're leading with
okay,
no objection. Okay,
right.
so go ahead.
I move,
You're with no objection, you can't move. But
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay,
If there are no objections,
if there are no
there you go.
objections,
Can you repeat your recommendation or your?
if there are no objections.
Yep.
Can I say I move?
No,
No,
you're the chair, you don't move, you just
I-
ask. for-
I just-
It's the same thing.
okay.
Different.
If there are no objections, the UC Master Gardener Program of Contra Costa County should be incorporated into the design
Hold on, that's a lot of words. Use Master Gardener Program,
of Contra Costa County.
Contra Costa County. Go ahead.
Should be incorporated into the design of the development of the Cordova Middle School site.
Incorporated. The
Development of the Cordova Middle School site.
I'll repeat that back to you. If there are no objections, the UC Master Gardener Program of Contra Costa County should be incorporated in the design of the Portola Middle School site.
Development of this developer's design,
Should be incorporated in the developer.
developer's design of the Cordova Middle School site. Will that satisfy all parties?
It will, and so you asked if no objections, so.
If there are no objections,
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
If you don't want my vote, then
No,
your facial expressions tell me a lot.
I'm just smiling, Don. Please. Give voice to your objection.
I just don't believe we should be making that recommendation to the board. I think just having them consider using it, but not having them direct the developer to include that. That's my concern.
Okay. So there's an objection. Shall we have a vote on the motion then? Thank you very much. Let me go down the list.
Yeah, one moment, let me get there.
Well, let me see first, so, is there a second? Motion fails.
It doesn't. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, we tried. Let's move on to Seaview. Oh, no, excuse me, I have to go through the ritual here of comparing sites. So we started with retail. So let me.
Before you start ranking, I'd like to make a motion that we remove item B from consideration.
And second,
What, I make a motion that
Pickleball,
we
tennis
remove
courts.
item B from
B is
consideration.
Okay, one moment.
It's been moved and seconded.
Who said it?
Under Portal Middle School, item B, be removed. If there are no objections, item B is removed. Okay, we are left with a A, C, and I made the UC program item D. Yes,
My question would be that I don't see how we're gonna be able to rank. And I just, without eliminating, I think the master gardening program, because they're asking for such a small piece of it that I think that would we be doing two recommendations on there, or we would just rank them out and not recommend them at all? Just because they're not asking for, the full site, or we're not recommending the full site be used by the master gardener program. We're recommending that, or we brought it to the table with 0.45 acreage. So I don't think that that's gonna be able to then move up. When we're talking about, do we want that or retail? Because when we're talking about retail or commercial, we're talking about the full site.
um. It must be fatigue.
Yeah, it's getting there.
I've got 7 minutes left. You can do it. I was trying to blend.
Yeah.
One thing with another here, and so, retail or commercial. Oh,
It's a broad spectrum.
yeah, I know, and. Okay, so let's go through it. If you prefer retail or commercial development over open market housing, please raise your hand.
I'm sorry, I'm noticing we don't have workforce housing as an option.
I know that.
Right.
We can add it. Would you like to add it?
I make a motion that we include workforce housing as an option for
Is there a
the
second?
board's consideration.
Second.
He's got a motion. I didn't catch if there was
Don?
more to the end of your motion because someone talked over it. So
Sorry.
what I have is Don moved to include workforce housing, and I believe you said something else after that.
As an option for the board's consideration.
On the portable side.
Seconded by Ms. Siegel. Discussion? Don, you made the motion.
The motion speaks for itself.
Anyone else? Shall we move on to voting? If there are no objections, we'll adopt it and we'll make it item B, replacing pickleball courts. So item B will be workforce housing.
I would make a motion that we combine, as we did with Adams, combined items A and B. So we're just talking about housing.
Okay, so a second,
So before we do that, we could have, once you want to combine A and B all into one thing, we could just perfect his original motion and amend it to read open market housing and workforce housing as all in part of A. Is that enough, or do you want them?
As long as we accomplish what I've asked for, I stop caring how we do it.
However you would like to do that, Mr. Chair.
wow. If there are no objections, we will combine open market housing and workforce housing in the same manner as Adams Middle School. Okay. And we're left with C here.
Not
Okay.
quite, I thought you were still ranking them.
Yeah, I was
You didn't
trying
do
to rank
anything.
them, but, A and B are combined, so we now have the sum of A and B plus item C. Item D the, and adding the consideration of UC Master Gardener Program. Oh.
I would make a motion that we rank housing.
I just want to see hands right now, if we need time.
There's no straw polling. We take a vote or we don't.
Okay. Go ahead, Don.
I make a motion that we rank housing as first, retail or commercial as second, and D, the Master Gardener Program as a standalone item, no matter what.
Okay. The affirmative nods, so if there is no objection, then A and B are combined, and the priorities are C over D, with D being consideration of UC Master Gardener Program.
So not C over D. D would be a standalone for all potential reuses, essentially.
Incorporating it to any of the other uses.
In the minutes, I'm not using A, C, and D, I'm actually using
Okay.
what it says, so I wanna make sure that's clear, so housing is first. Retail or commercial,
Retail or commercial,
it was second.
and item D will be attached to both A, B, and C. Yes,
Item D is a standalone,
standalone.
right, so
So-
it's not attached. You
Well, it
made
would be
motion as
attached.
But you made it as a standalone.
Not as a separate item for consideration for ranking. It would be included, no matter what is used for A, B, or C, it would be included with those.
Be part of any use.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
Yeah,
okay,
that's how I was understanding it. I thought that's what I tried to say.
you did.
Wow, look at the time.
I know.
No, don't. You got one more side.
And just a point of order, we don't have a future meeting date. And so
No.
we may want to consider what's the best use of our remaining time.
So hold on, let's finish your motion first. Don't move to rank housing first, retail or commercial second. And the UC Master Gardener Program of Contra Costa County added.
Be
to
part
each-
of any
to
use.
each.
That was it,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a finish of the sentence. You just said
to
added.
each. Added to each, so added to
Right.
each use.
All right.
We'll add the word use to make it a little more. Okay.
Yeah. So if there are no objections. So ordered. Now, in my remaining minute, I need to set a next meeting date. And so would you please, pull out your calendars and look at the Tuesdays in the near future. Two weeks from today is the 25th of June. Does anyone have any conflict with meeting on the 25th of June?
I do.
Okay. And then we get into the first week of July, which is the second.
I'm basically not available on Tuesday again until July 16. But I think the committee could meet if they know they have a quorum.
When are you gonna be gone, Ardo? You know,
I'm not gonna go this year.
oh, okay, things change.
Yeah, they did.
Done?
Now, I've got meetings every night. My question is, which one's gonna blow off?
July 16th, are you available?
I could,
July, now we move from June to July.
oh, yeah.
Well, June 25th,
Well,
Only someone.
Richmond City Council has canceled their meeting for July 16th, so that works fine for me.
And the 25th, you could meet if you have a quorum without me coming.
okay, so,
Okay, sorry, give you
So we have
the.
that's all right. So,
What date are you-
6/25 and 7/16 are the two dates under consideration. So if, Melissa, if we have, if Iris can poll the members of the committee, and if we have a quorum, then 6/25 will be our next meeting. If we can't have a quorum, then 7/16 will be our next meeting. Okay? So the date, June 25th, we will convene again and try to wrap up CVU and possibly get to drafting a preliminary report or planning out our community meetings. We have to have hearings.
Quick question, you're bringing, drafting a report after our next meeting. I mean, can we extend this meeting for another 15 minutes and hash out the last one? So that way we're just done with this whole part of it and then move on to the next phase of things versus holding off to,
I have a point. Yes.
We haven't finished with the motion that you said. If there's no objection, we have to finish one thing at a time.
okay.
So with no objection, the next meeting of June 25th was adopted with, you wanted July 16th as the alternate.
July 16th will be the succeeding meeting,
Okay,
provided we have a quorum on 6/25.
there's no way to determine that until the meeting date, so with no objection, the next meeting dates
Is
would be
June 25th.
June 25th and July
July
16th.
July 16th.
Okay. Was that with no objection?
Um,
Was that with no objection?
with no objection. Yeah, would you like to extend time for 10 minutes?
Oh, we are not done with the motions where he raised his hand.
No,
When
we
you asked for
can't do that.
objection.
It's a no objection.
That's,
No,
you had no objection, okay. We don't need to extend time because we have not put on our agenda that we have a set.
Well,
Time
except
to
the
end.
time on our agenda was 6 to 8.
Nope, the time on the agenda is 6 P.M.
Can I make a motion, that in looking at this Seaview, property, that we recommend to grant the easement to the East Bay? Oh gosh, now I have to remember the whole acronym.
Regional Park District.
Regional Park District, and then recommend looking at both open market and employee housing as we have with the others.
You want to make that, combine it into one motion so that, instead of two separate, because I've got a problem with the first part of it. But I can't support it this time because there's not enough
Okay,
information.
object and I'll let you make it, Don. No, it's okay, I support flipping it over.
So
So are you
want,
making a motion?
I was, but if Don's gonna object, Don, go ahead and object it.
We
No.
don't need an.
Okay.
Folks want, make a motion. If someone objects, great.
Okay,
Are you making a motion?
yes.
Okay, and what is your motion now?
My motion is, now I have to remember everything I said, to recommend to the board to look into, that we want to look into the combination of open market housing and workforce housing as with the
Hold on.
other.
That's as fast as I can remember. Open market, housing, and workforce housing.
Yes,
Okay,
as with the other sites. And also to suggest that we recommend the easements to the East Bay Recreational Park District.
okay.
And it's the East Bay Regional Park.
The Regional Park District.
I just wanted the motion to be correct.
I'm gonna beat that back if you like.
Yes, please.
So I move to recommend, to the board to look into the combination of open market housing and workforce housing as with the other sites, and also recommend the easement to the East Bay Regional Park Office. Park District, sorry.
Any second? I'll second it. Can I second? No, I can't second. Well, then
I'd like to make-
motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion that we we recommend that for consideration, the combined open market housing and workforce housing for the CVU site.
I second.
Okay. Okay, so moved and seconded that workforce housing and open market housing be combined for the CVU site. Any discussion? And with no objection.
Yeah.
The motion passes. If there are no objections, the motion passes. Okay, with respect to the easement, Don, do you have a point?
With regards to easement, I just want more information. That's my only concern. I love the Bay Trail, but I'm not getting the information from the East Bay Regional Park District that I need to know whether it's the best use of the property. That's all. Okay. Yeah.
I concur.
Okay. So, so that will have to be covered in another meeting. All right, so ladies and gentlemen,
Sir.
Yes,
Before we wrap up, did you summarize what we accomplished tonight?
You want me, I can
Yeah.
read the minutes of it if you want.
Can I share something really quickly? So we do have representatives from the East Bay Regional Park District joining the meeting via Zoom. One of the representatives that we've heard, that the committee's heard from in a previous meeting, has raised their hand. Considering the time, I just wanted to be very open and transparent to the chair. The hand has been raised, so I don't know if
so as I understand it, the item is before us now, and so we can entertain public comment on the item. And so, if you can bring her up on Zoom, perhaps Donald, you can get the input that you need and others need.
Sure, what I guess is that?
Yeah,
okay.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Good
This
evening.
is Sarah Reek from the East Bay Regional Park District.
We can't hear you.
Uh-oh. How about now?
yes.
Yes.
Great. Good evening. This is Sarah Reek, Acting Senior Real Property Specialist with the East Bay Regional Park District. I've been tuned into your meeting tonight since about 6 p.m. And I just heard Mr. Gosney say that he has questions for the Park District that he is not getting answered. And I guess that I would just ask Mr. Gosney if he could perhaps put his questions into an email and address it to myself, and then I can see about answering those questions. I have
Absolutely.
not been informed that he has had any questions, so I'm not sure who he's speaking with, but I'm happy to try my best to get answers.
I have no problem with what you've asked for. And information has come up just recently, over the past couple of days, that, so I mean, this is a fluid discussion.
So if I can ask, who are you speaking with at the Park District?
No, not at the Park District, but for instance, with the mayor of Pinole. I spoke with her on Friday, who I also happens to be working with the county, plus doing my own, physical research out there. Like I said, I still have questions, that's all.
I see. Great. So I think you've got my email address, but if you
Yes, I
don't,
do.
okay, great. Yes,
Uh,
please feel free to send any questions my way. Sometimes I can't answer your questions, but I can speak with other staff at the Park District to try to get those answers. Also, I would remind everyone that my understanding is that we only have 30% or 35% design, I think, right now. So there are a lot of questions that can't be answered at this time, but again, I'll do my best.
Okay, would you stand by for just a moment while we hear from, the county representative?
I just wanted to clarify that my discussion was not related to Pinole. It was as the county, and Sarah, it was from getting your standards that are on your website regarding Bay Trail design standards.
So the part about being Mayor Pinole, you showed me,
I was speaking to you as the Deputy Director of the Department of Conservation and Development for Contra Costa County. Sorry, different hat.
Different hat. Okay, all right. I believe we're at a point where we can adjourn the meeting now.
Unless you'd like to
Unless we have what?
Yeah,
Is there another?
summary.
Oh,
Minutes
okay, excuse me.
at the next meeting.
Guadalupe would like to have the minutes read back, so.
Oh, I didn't want minutes, I said, we just have minutes at the next meeting. I mean, I don't need, like, are we reading it today?
Art,
Okay, I'll rescind my motion or request.
okay. All right, having no more business to discuss tonight, I would like to declare the meeting adjourned at 8:11. Thank you all for coming.
We can have more than-
Contact information. And,